A good evening, this is Untitled Chapter, and welcome to this special Games Gun edition of Total War, where today we're going to look at how you can fix the pikes in Medieval 2 Total War, because, yeah, in Rome, phalanxes were absolutely the god tier unit. They destroyed all that came in front of them. Unless you really got right around the back, they really were an immense killing machine, grinding everything, particularly Pink Pajama Men, to a pulp. But in Medieval 2 they weren't quite so strong. So today we're going to have a look at how we can mod the game and fix them to make them the real beautiful unit that they should be. In Medieval 2, pikes were significantly nerfed, and these guys, the Landsknecht Pikemen, are a unit of significance in history. A unit who should be ruling the battlefield, but they're pretty darn terrible all things considered. And that isn't really just because of its low defence. That shouldn't really matter. Its long pikes should prevent those problems. So what we're going to do here, we're going to send them in against a unit or two of chivalric knights. Pretty solid, heavy infantry from the late game of France here. Now, as they get themselves charging in to our pikemen, you would kind of expect the pikemen just to be able to keep them at arm's length and basically murder them. But you'll see here, we've got ourselves along pipes. We will probably immediately take quite significant damage, and we'll probably find that we very quickly put away the pikes altogether. You see, they've changed over to the swords, and this is really the issue with the pikemen. I can now try and tell them to attack again, but it's too late. They've already mucked up their formation. They just don't work. They don't work how they're supposed to. These guys are getting themselves brutalised. We've killed 4 or 5 at most. Yeah, only 5 of them gone down at that point there. And there's actually a second unit over here. What are they even doing? Put your pikes down. It's ludicrous. It's a darn shame, because phalanxes were such beautiful units in Rome Total War. To be fair, they did need a little bit of rebalancing, but it seems to have gone way too far the other way here on Medieval 2. So we're going to try a few different solutions to this. Does it look it might be able to deal with this first unit just about, but yeah, we've got a few potential solutions. Now, I have seen a really good solution suggested by the Tower Project, a YouTube channel not too dissimilar size to mine actually, who does some really good videos on the mechanics of the game. And he has a really good solution, but I'll show you that first, and then I'll give you my solution, because mine, I think, well, it's a little bit more modding, bit of a bodge job perhaps, but I'm going to show you a little modding solution that I think perhaps make this work.
I have spear wall activated, but I do not have guard mode activated, so my men just put their pikes down flat like this. Frenchmen are charging in. Now, as soon as I unpause this, the French are going to charge right into the top of these pikes, and once they hit the tops of those pikes, you're going to see what I'm going to do is I'm going to issue a halt command, backspace, hit the halt button, whatever hotkey you have, that's going to make your men stop immediately. And then I'm going to issue an attack order. What that's going to do is it's going to stop the units from doing what they want to do, which is drop their pikes, go to their swords, and get totally butchered. And it's going to reset them. They're going to put their pikes down, and they're going to start thrusting with those pikes. And you're going to see that pike animation that's so powerful start to kick in. Let's see how it goes. Backspace attack. One right after the other, almost no break in between. Now look there, all the men put their pikes down, and let's see what happens. Now look at this, we are starting to butcher through that unit. We've killed the enemy general.
Whilst the solution he suggests there does work to some extent, it's well worth noticing that it is going to involve a lot of micromanagement, and of course you can't really handle that if there's lots of other battles going on across the field. So what we're going to do is find a little bit more of a modder's solution. So to do that, we're going to head inside Medieval 2 Total War and into the data folder. You will of course need to have unpacked the files. There is a video on that in the link in the description below. We're going to scroll down towards the bottom of the file to this little bit here, export Deska unit. Once inside this file then, we've headed straight down to the Landsknecht Pikemen. Now this file is one we've looked at a few times before on the channel, but in case it looks just a little bit daunting, there is a very good explanation at the top here of what each of those lines and each of those numbers mean. Okay, so it does very much help. Have a good read through of that. It will explain it. However, if we go and look at the Landsknecht Pikemen, we can see here quite a few bits of information. can see their key attributes here: seafaring, hiding forest, hardy, so good stamina, mercenary unit. They've got pikes, marvelous. They've got square formation. They've got phalanxes. But there are some other really important bits of information here as well. One of the key stats you might like to change is the number of men in the unit, which at the base level is 60 here. But more importantly is this number. This is the unit's mass. One obviously is a fairly standard amount, but we can go and change it up, for example, up to 1.2. It will make the unit a bit more solid. It will mean that it can survive better from a charge. For example, let's head down to the Noble Pikemen, a very strong unit from Scotland. They have 1.2 on their mass. They're a bit more heavily armoured, if I recall. So they're a little bit more hard to push back, to hit with a charge. And we did see, when we were using the Landsknecht Pikemen, that the Chivalric Knights would take out a good 10 on the initial charge. So let's head back up to the Landsknecht for just a moment. Helps if I don't spell it with a double D. There we go. So yeah, the Landsknecht Pikemen here have themselves 1.2 now. That might just help us a little bit. But there's also these numbers over here. Now we can see here this is square and phalanx. That just tells us about some of their formations that they're able to use. And 8 is the amount of rows that's by default. So the ranks can be, for example, 4 if you want the ranks to be in ranks of 4. So we'll change that round to that. Over here though, this is the soldier spacing. So really how much of a little gap there is from side to side and from front to back. This is for loose formation as well. So what we can do is go and make this a little bit smaller. Let's say 0.8. And again, 0.8, not 10. That would be ludicrous. And we'll just put these in half. So 1.2 and again 1.2. Now what we're doing here is we are changing the basic stats of them. We're making the unit tighter. We're making the unit a little bit denser. So let's load up the game. Let's see what difference that makes. Now you might be suggesting, Thomas, you should maybe take off the spear wall or maybe put on guard mode, but to be honest, that really doesn't make a difference. Being on the defensive isn't what solves this. Weirdly, it's initiating the attack that really makes the difference. So we've got 75 down to 64 pretty quickly there. Very similar to last time. We're going to reorder the attack because that does seem to make a slight difference. Halt attack. We'll give it a little go, but 56 to 50, 48. We've held on a little bit better this time. Maybe the tightness has just helped us out a little bit, but I'm not sure this is really making the big difference we want. So this isn't really fixing pikemen. The problem, you'll notice here, is the continuous pulling out of these swords. They need to stay in formation. They need to stay in their block of pikes. So that's what we're going to do. Because you can fiddle around with those masses and the tightness formation all you want. I found that it's not a particularly useful solution. You can get some marginal gains, but frankly, the main issue is this, the short swords. They exist for a reason, of course, but I've got a way around it, which does have a very, very beautiful solution. Back inside the game files then, and you can see I've returned these stats to their original values. Of course, do make sure you have a backup of these files before you start editing. It is a nightmare to deal with otherwise. Now, what we really want to look at is the stat primary here and the stat secondary. These are basically their weapons. So we have ourselves our lovely, lovely spears here. Attack of 11, charge bonus of 4. You can have a little look-see up at the top if you want to know what all of these different little bits and pieces of info mean. But essentially, what we're interested in is knowing that the secondary weapon is currently a sword. And what we want to do instead is just change this round. So I'm just going to write no, 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 and no again. And that should be all we need to do. Just to be safe, I'm going to write no, no, no here as well. Because I suspect that's just the best plan to be safe. So no, 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 no. Just no swords. Just stop it, please. Stop the swords. Right, and with that, we'll save it up and we'll load the game, because that hopefully means that now we just have pikes and we can't change around the weapon. Back onto the field then with our Landsknecht Pikemen, and the game doesn't seem to think we have much of a chance, but I reckon if we can keep these pikes up, we definitely will be in a good position. Now, I mentioned before about the guard mode. If you want to see about how all the different choices of formation and being offensive or defensive, how they fare, well, then do watch the Tower Projects video. I've got a little link in the description below. It just go through all the different kind of approaches you can make and explains why he thinks his is the best. But a bit of modding will probably be the better solution, I think. So we're going to use our pikes. I suspect we'll lose the 10 or so like we always do from the charge. We are. There's that big loss right at the front. But we've not changed the swords. No swords here at all. This is good. And we're starting to stabilise. 55. After that initial charge, it hasn't gone down. Because we're keeping in formation. Look at that. They've just been held at a distance now. My general's dead because they are flanking us. That's the only thing that they're really doing here is a little flank. But at the front, they are doing absolutely nothing. We've lost a few more since that initial charge, but they are mostly gone now. And you can see that the pikes are doing what the pikes should do. Their defence is in their range and keeping the Frenchies at a distance. And yes, the odd guy flanking is causing issues, but you know, you use spearmen in groups, you get some more mobile infantry to go and cover on the flanks. It's definitely doing the job here. Beautiful, beautiful work. And we just speed this up to victory here because I don't think the French are going to last much longer here. And actually, well done, Frenchie. They're fighting to the very last here, down to 5, 4, 3. Yeah, there we go. The Frenchies are running away. But to be fair to the French, they actually fought pretty darn well. And that spike went right through him. That's a very skillful Landsknecht. He stabbed him with the middle of the pike. And wow, since the initial, 15 or so died on that initial charge? We lost 8 after the formation stabilised. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that is how you make pikes work in Medieval 2. Remove the secondary weapon and they suddenly become the unit they were always meant to be. Beautiful. Thank you for joining me on this Games Gun edition of Medieval 2 Total War. I am looking to do a few more videos of this kind of ilk, really looking at the mechanics of the battles themselves. Certainly there are a few other units like muskets and halberds which don't seem to quite work the way that they're intended to, or at least people aren't entirely 100% happy with it. So maybe we'll have a little look at those again in the future. Do let me know what you think in the comments below, because I know there are a few frustrating units in the big wide pool of late game units of Medieval 2. But for now, I will leave you. I am Thomas, this is Untitled Human, and this has been Making Pikes Work in Medieval 2 Total War. Thank you, and bye-bye. Today we're going to go for particularly aggressive diplomacy. Oh yes, it worked. Kablamo! You were always going to die, Steve. Oh! My feudal knights! My crispy, crispy feudal knights! The ram's burning! Right at the death!